Hey, it's Joe Amoya, the Smarter Dating Guy. Welcome back. Yesterday, we talked about the two parts of our brain, the emotional part and the logical part, and how you unknowingly put yourself in position to fail when it comes to men dating and relationships. Well, today, we're going to talk about the three specific reasons why you continue to struggle with quickly identifying a man's real intentions and screening men. And as I mentioned, there are three major reasons. The first is simply nobody ever taught you. Imagine if you wanted to be the world's greatest chef, but nobody ever taught you how to cook or how to use cooking utensils. What are the odds that you would be cooking great meal after great meal? Slim to none, right? Well, that's exactly how it works in this dating and relationship world. The reality is, if you look back over your educational background, you were never taught. And you might have had good parents. I had really good parents, but they never taught me what was necessary to create a happy and fulfilling relationship. And more importantly, how to succeed at dating to find that. So that's the first reason. The second reason, this is kind of what we talked about yesterday, was how we're so emotional. Falling in love and finding love is such an emotional thing for men and women. Now, yes, women are much more emotional than men are, but men are as emotional as well. And so very often our emotions work against us, and it causes us to make choices and decisions which aren't really in alignment with where we want to go and what we want to create. And the third reason that it's very difficult to screen men and find their true intentions is because of our communication skills. If you really think about it, we're all really poor communicators. We say one thing, but very often we mean another. And this can never be more true than when it comes to men and women. And this is something that I learned quickly in life. And let me explain how I learned this lesson. The first, when I was about 12 years old, my mother sent me to the store to get milk. And so I was looking at all the different options for milk, and I saw the one that was on sale. And I thought it was a great value. So I was excitedly, I purchased the milk. I go home to tell my mother about this great purchase that I made. And when I got home, she's like, "Why did you buy that?" And I'm like, "But it's milk. And it was on sale. It was such a great deal. I got a gallon for a half a gallon price." And she's like, "But we don't drink that milk." And I'm like, "But you didn't tell me." And she's like, "But you should have known." And so in that moment, there was a part of me going, why should I have known? You asked me to go get milk, and I went to get milk, and I bought what I thought was the best value. So that was the first instant. And then a couple of years later, my dad had passed away, and it was probably a year or two after his passing that it was Christmas time. And I went to my mother and I said, "What do you want for Christmas?" And she's like, "Nothing, don't worry about it." And so this went on repeatedly, probably a couple of weeks or so. So finally I'm like, boy, she's pretty adamant about it. Maybe, we're having a hard time. Maybe she wants me to save money. So guess what I did? I'm ashamed to admit it, but I didn't buy her a Christmas present. And man, did I catch hell. And when I went back to her and said, "But you told me not to get you anything," she was like, "But you should have got me something anyway, because that was the right thing to do." And I was a little bit more confused. And then this last episode is when the light really went on for me. When I was in college, I was working in the hospital, and one of my relatives was in a really bad car accident. So I went to visit her. And I was sitting in a room, and she was there with her boyfriend. And her boyfriend had just started a brand new job. And she started basically saying, "You know what, you got to get up early, you got to really be on time, you want to really impress your new employees. So you've been here a while, go home." And he's like, "No, babe, I want to be here with you. You were in an accident, I want to support you." And she's like, "No, go home, go home." And this went on literally for a half hour, back and forth. "Go home, no, I want to be here." Until finally he was like, "You sure?" And she's like, "Yep, I'm sure, please go home." So he's like, "Okay, if that's what you want." And so he left. The minute he walked out that door, she went, "That a-hole, I can't believe he left." And I sat there going, am I hearing what I'm hearing? For a half hour, you told him to go home, And you insisted. And then when he finally goes home, and it's his fault, you yell at him. And so I asked her, I said, why did you tell him to go home? She's like, I wanted him to stay because he wanted to stay. And so basically what I realized is that, and it was at that moment the light bulb went off. It's like, when a woman says something, it's not necessarily what she really means. And let me give you an example of that. You ever ask the guy how your butt looks in your jeans? Okay? You don't want the honest answer, do you? I mean, 99% of the time, you want him to tell you, oh, you look fine, or oh, yes, you look good, or you're hot anyway, whatever you want to hear. And so you're asking a question, and here's the problem, is a guy is going to give you the honest answer. So if your butt looks big, the guy's going to tell you, your butt looks big. But it's not his fault, because that's just the communication skills. So as men and women, we just talk two totally different languages. And it's another reason why this whole dating and relationship thing is so much more difficult than it needs to be. So here's the problem. If you're struggling in your dating and relationships, it's because you're unknowingly putting yourself in position to fail. And it's because of those three reasons. You make it almost impossible to identify a guy's real intentions and to quickly screen guys, just simply because you've never been taught. Now the good news is you can learn how to do this stuff, and that's also what I'm going to show you tomorrow. But I want to give you an example. One of my clients was in a really bad marriage for 28 years. And when I asked her why she stayed, she's like, quite honestly, I stayed for two reasons. I was afraid to leave, and I was afraid of the effects of the kids. I didn't want to leave until my kids were out of college and out of the house. And I could really understand that. That tells me how much love she had in her heart for her kids. She was so willing to stay in such a horrible marriage. And we started working together, and I started showing her some of these skills and tools, and she started making quick and better choices with men almost instantaneously. But what was really cool is she took what I taught her and she started sharing it with her daughter. And the irony is, at that point, her daughter was in her late 20s, and she was already in a 5-year relationship where it was just really bad. And she told me, she's like, Joe, you know what? She's like, it was like watching my life in rewind again. It was like watching the same thing happen over and over again. So she started sharing some of these skills and tools with her daughter, and her daughter ultimately got out of that relationship. And when she came back to me, she's like, you know what? You really need to share this with other women, is because we mean well, we just don't understand what the heck we're doing. And one of my intentions for doing this is not only to help you, but quite frankly, if you have a daughter now, or you're going to have a daughter in the future, is that you can share this stuff with her from the very beginning, so that she doesn't have to go through the same crap. It's one of the reasons I called my company Smarter Dating, is because it's really about learning how to do things differently, how to do things smarter. See, it doesn't have to be that hard. So as I told you earlier, I've created something really cool. And tomorrow, I'm going to share the details on how you can learn to solve these problems and solve them quicker. It really is that simple. So I hope you enjoyed this. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have an awesome day. Take care.